So we'll be taking a look at Spring Boot in Java. And see, I'll keep an eye on the questions room here as well. So if you've got VS Code installed, you're off to a good start. Java support in VS Code was kind of non-existent a few years ago, and it's gotten just so much better recently. So if you're in VS Code, you'll want to go over to extensions and then search Java, and you'll find the Java extension pack. You can go ahead and install that. And also helpful today will be the Spring Boot extension pack. So if you search Spring, it won't be quite the first one, but it'll be in here. Or actually, it may end up being the first one. I just have a few of them installed. So I'll give everyone a minute to do that. You will also need Java if you don't have it. So I will send that link here as well. So that link will get you to Azul's distribution of Java 15. If you're familiar with Java, you'll know that Oracle was actually the one maintaining it, still maintains it. Azul has a distribution as well called Zulu, which is a more free distribution. Oracle recently changed their licensing terms, and so a lot of people were somewhat unhappy about that. And so Azul kind of stepped in and made their own. Yeah, the two extensions. Let's see. We're looking for the Java extension pack and the Spring Boot extension pack. Quite welcome. So if you do prefer to use a different IDE for Java, if you're already set up in something else, something that we can use here is called Spring Initializer. It is a website, start.spring.io. You fill in a few details. Honestly, you can leave them completely as the default. And then you click generate. It gives you a download. You unzip that and open it up in your IDE. However, VS Code with the Spring Boot extension pack has some really nice support for that built in. So I'll go through how to do that within VS Code so that you don't even have to leave the IDE. How's everyone doing on getting things installed? Are we there yet, or do we need a little bit of time? All right. Give it just another minute or so for anyone else who might be following along, and then we'll get started. Right, I'm seeing a few OKs here. So going forward on this, as Joe was saying, Command-Shift-P or Control-Shift-P will get you the command palette. And then what we'll be looking for is if you type in Spring, one of the options is going to be Spring Initializer. And you're going to have a few options here. Maven or Gradle, both options are perfectly fine. Those are different ways of building Java projects. If you're familiar with C and C++, you've got a make file where you put your build commands. Maven and Gradle are very similar to that in the Java world. I'm going to go with Maven. That's what I generally use. So it's going to ask us a few questions now. It's going to ask for the Spring Boot version. 2.4.4 should be selected. That is the latest stable version. As you can see, these other ones are either snapshot or this one is a milestone release. So those are all basically beta versions. And then it's going to ask us what language we want to use. These are 3 different languages that run within the Java virtual machine. But of course, for this talk, we're going to stick with Java. If you want to get adventurous later on, Kotlin is gaining popularity. Groovy, a little bit older, but still somewhat popular. So we'll go with Java. And then it's going to ask us for a couple of things. A group ID, that is basically a way to like identify the company or the developer. So in this example, I'll just do com.github.nic, assuming that that were my GitHub name. This is a very common thing that people do. Generally, it is based on a domain that you control. Actually, the proper way would be probably io.github.nic, since that would be my GitHub pages domain. And then it's going to ask for an artifact ID that identifies the project. So I'm going to just leave it as demo. Packaging type, we're not going to worry about this. We're going to just go with jar. And Java version, we're going to go with 11. So it's going to ask us for dependencies as well here. There are 2 that we're going to look for. Lombok, so we're just going to arrow down, enter on that, and Spring Web. In just a minute here, we'll see what both of those do. So now that I've selected both of those, press enter to continue. It's going to ask me where I want to store this. Let's see. And then it generates that, and we'll say we're ready to open it. So once we're in here, I'm actually going to minimize this part on the side and open the Java projects section. Actually, I'm going to go in here first and find our file. See what else this is. We're going to switch to standard mode. And then that'll load this up. So once this is loaded up, you can actually start navigating all through here. And what we see is it generated one class for us automatically, and that is this demo application class. Not even going to worry about that right now. That is kind of just some basic boilerplate code that gets the application started, because as you see here, it's got our main application, and then the only thing in there is it's telling Spring to basically load up the application and do its stuff. So is everyone at this point, are there any questions here? Give it just a minute if anyone else is getting to that point still. All right. So, let's see, moving on in this, let's create a new class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to my package here is what we're going to call it. That is a group of classes in Java. It's referred to as a package. And I'm going to click this for a new class. I'm going to name it demo controller. And you could name yours whatever you want. Generally, though, for what we're going to be doing here, the standard is to name it some sort of controller. This is basically going to be the first step anything in a web API enters into. And then once we do that, we're going to actually arrow up above the class here, and we're going to put an annotation on it. In Java, an annotation is basically a note on the class so that other points in the code can find it, reference it, do things with it. And this annotation is called REST controller. And VS Code will automatically add an import for that. If you're familiar with Java, that is just saying, yeah, this is the other piece of code that I'm referencing here. So then once we do that, we're kind of set up to build our first really just simple, basic Hello World API in here. So if you're familiar with how HTTP works, you've got things like GET requests where you're just basically loading a web page. You've got things like POST requests where you're submitting a form or something like that. For our first API, we'll do a GET request. We'll keep it simple. So we're going to actually say a new annotation here, GET mapping. Yeah, that's correct, Ryan. And actually, I could probably zoom this a bit more. So for get mapping, we actually do parentheses here as well to give it a parameter. And we're just going to say /hello. And then we're going to go down and say public string hello world. Keep it simple. And that is our function there. So what it's saying is right now it's expecting a string back. Nothing in here returns a string. So if we just fix that up with a simple hello from Spring, that should take care of that. And we've actually made our first API here. So if we go ahead and save this, we can go back over to the Java project here. And if we hover over this part at the top here, we can actually run it. See Spring start up. Let's see. It should say in here somewhere what port it's on. It's on port 8080. So if I pull up a web browser, I'm going to just go to localhost port 8080/hello. And you'll see I actually get that hello from Spring there. And I will copy that into the channel for anyone who needs it. So I know this is probably impossible to see in the top left of my screen. So has everyone gotten to this point, successfully running it and able to see it in the browser? Awesome. So now we can do something a little more interesting. Let's take a look here. So if we do a get mapping for, let's say, add, you can probably see where this is going. And let's see, I need to put parameters in here. So I'm actually just looking at this reference. Don't worry about me here. I'm going to kill this off. Done with that. So I'll show a couple of different ways to do this. But first things first, we're going to actually go in here. We'll say name equals add. And what else? Params equals, we're going to do an array here. All right, we'll just do first and second. So probably saying we need something here. And so these parameters here, actually, if I'm remembering correctly now, we may not even strictly need that. It may be able to figure it out on its own. These parameters here are going to get passed in. So we could say, let's see. If I can even remember, it's one of those things where you do all of the advanced stuff for so long you forget the basics. It is integer parseInt. That is it. So we can actually just return an integer away with that. So let's see if I actually got this right. So what we're doing here is a get mapping for add, and our parameters are first and second, and we've got those down here as well. And we're really just adding them together and returning it. So simple calculator, just to show some logic here. I'm going to go back up and run the project again and wait for that to start up. If I go back to the browser now, see our hello is still working. If I do add, we get an error page. Perfect. So let's see what's going on. If I had a guess, it's probably something like this. Let me just give this a try. Whoops, it did not like that at all because I was already running one. So if you get that error here where it says failed to start, port 8080 was already in use, either you've already got something on your system using port 8080 or forgot to kill off the previous one. So just go into the drop down here, select the one that was previously running, kill that off, and then you'll have to kill this one off again and start it fresh. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and refresh this page, and hey, it worked. So even simpler than I thought, and I'll give you, this is the URL that I used for that. So if we switch back to the code here. So really simple. If you put parameters into the method here, it's going to automatically map query parameters from the browser into those. So are there any questions at this point or anything, since I know we've only got a couple of minutes left here in particular, that anyone wants to see? Um, we could try building out something that you guys want to see. Okay, so first plus second being 5. So what I did here was, I'll actually put a comment in here. This is the URL that I put into my browser. So add here being our path. And then for first, I gave it the value 2. And for second, I gave it the value 3. So because we're actually taking strings in, and actually we could probably simplify this even further. I bet if I just say integer here, it will automatically figure that out. Spring Boot is pretty smart about a lot of stuff. You really can get away with doing a lot with a little bit of code. Whereas normally in Java, you're taking in something on like the command line, it's got to be a string. And then you've got to do all the work to get it off the command line into whatever specific format or type of variable that you need. Let's see, maybe this will start up here. Oh, I think VS Code just froze up on me. Let's give it a sec. I'm gonna actually see if it's running. Not quite. I'll give that a moment and see. I'll find whatever is causing it. I probably shouldn't have put that. Keep waiting. There we go. Let's reopen this. Okay. If you get this popping up, Maven wrapper is found in this workspace. Do you trust it? You go ahead and click yes. The reason it asks that is because if you're downloading a project from the internet or whatever, it can include Maven or Gradle wrapper. Those are those build tools for Java. And those could technically just execute an arbitrary command, run something, download something, whatever. In our case, we got this straight from Spring. There's nothing to really worry about here. Anyhow, let me get back in here and see if we can run this now. There we go. That's looking better. So now that that's started up, yeah, we can see that that even works out well. So, yeah. So if there are any questions at this point, which error were you getting, John? Okay, so if you're getting that error, it's likely that it's not seeing exactly, let's see here. Those messages you're seeing should be fine. It's basically saying that it's using a newer version of Java than specified. At least that's what it looks like. Yeah, let's see that. So what I did here, I actually cleaned this code up a little bit. On line 13 that you have there, if you condense that down to just what I have now, that should work for you. Having the params in there was a little bit too much. Does it seem to be working out for you with that change? I think it's about time for us to wrap up and hand it off to the next presenter here. I'll be around tonight for a bit, as well as tomorrow morning. So if you guys do need anything from me, feel free to ping me. What is Java used for? Java, it used to be kind of popular for applications running on personal computers a while back. It's kind of fallen to the wayside for that, but it is still very popular in the business world. It's a language that is very easy to just get up and running in, and you don't have to worry about things like memory management, so it takes care of a lot of that overhead for you. So very popular in the business world, particularly for things like APIs here. I'll see it kind of powering a lot of applications that you don't even realize that it powers them. For example, I'm pretty sure Blizzard uses it for some of their account systems. So Spring in particular.